Welcome once again to the second in the series that I've told you I believe can be life-changing. I learned a new expression the other day. Some of my college students taught me that if a program really gets a lot of viewers, it goes viral. That's the expression. And I like to believe that this is really going to go viral, because the ideas that we are going to be discussing are the ideas and the questions that everyone at some point or another begins to wonder about. And as I told you last time, through the efforts of David Birnbaum, we have a Mesorah Matrix project that already has completed 10 books on 10 major questions that people need to deal with if they're to analyze their lives, if they think about their relationship with God, if they care about life having meaning. 150 so far, rabbis, scholars, theologians, authors have contributed, and I've just been told that in the course of the writing of these books, because the scholarly world heard about this project, 30 more people were added who begged to be included. And we've brought the series up to date. We've added articles in order to allow these people to be part of the project as well. So it is becoming something recognized worldwide as a tremendous contribution to the history of ideas. And this program, the series that we are now engaged in, is going to tempt you and tease you and get you to know a little bit more about it. The first in the series, I had the privilege of editing together with David Birnbaum, and the book is called Sanctification. Fascinating, and we indicate this on the front. The lead essay is by Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, the former chief rabbi of the United Kingdom, whose name one doesn't even have to talk about. I mean, he is revered as a scholar, as a communicator, as an outstanding religious figure of this generation. And he was kind enough to contribute an article as well, which certainly speaks wonders about the quality of this work. Now, you've seen the title. This is the first thing that David Birnbaum and I decided should be the subject for one of our essays. Because sanctity, sanctification, in Hebrew, Kedushah, is a word we all throw around often when we want to speak about the holy. And then when you ask people, "Oh, what do you mean by that?" "Well, holy is holy." "I still don't know what you mean by that." "Well, it's not secular." "Yeah, so you're describing it by way of antonym." What is a holy life? What is holiness all about? Jews, whenever we say a blessing, the opening words are, "Blessed are you, O Lord, our God, King of the universe, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav," who sanctified us with his mitzvot. Now, what does that mean, he sanctified us? Well, again, he made us holy. So how have we changed? What is sanctity getting at is my question. And I have done this many times with people. I mean, students at yeshiva schools, prominent Jewish schools. I mean, with people older in life. They all use the word holiness. What are you talking about? And nobody's quite sure. And so the rabbis and other contributors to this volume all took the word apart, and they came to certain fundamental conclusions. There was a great deal of agreement, but every one of the authors developed the concept in a different and magnificent way. Let me try to digest for you some of their analyses. The first thing that many of the contributors pointed out was a verse in the Bible, in Vayikra, in the book of Leviticus, where you have this word of Kedushah, holiness, as focal point, and where there seems to be the beginning of an answer to the question of meaning. The verse says, Kedoshim tiyu, you shall be holy. That's an instruction to us, to humankind. Ki kodosh ani Hashem Elokechem. For I, the Lord your God, am holy. Well, that's interesting. We are to be holy so that we can, in some way, imitate and be like God. But my God, if you'll forgive the expression, how in the world can I imitate God? God, by definition, is so much above me that there's no way a human can become God. So what does that mean? And so the Jewish commentators, in their brilliance, say that the point of the verse is not to imitate in the sense of to be him, we can't be him, but to be like him in terms of his qualities and in terms of his actions. It isn't just Jews, but Christians and people who revere the Bible have all come up with the concept of imitatio Dei, which means, it's the Latin for imitating God. For us in Hebrew, it's called mahu afato, just as he, so too you. If I admire someone, if I have a hero, and all of us should have heroes, because heroes represent the goals that we aspire to. Heroes represent our potential in areas that we think valuable. Our greatest hero, the one we most want to emulate, ought to be God. And the more we are like him, the more we emulate him, the holier we are, because God's definition is the Holy One. Now, what do we know about God, says the Midrash beautifully, and a number of authors have pointed this out. The Torah begins telling us that God clothed the naked in the Garden of Eden. The Torah ends and it teaches us that God buried the dead. When Moses died, there was no one worthy of burying him other than the Lord himself. So from beginning to end, from clothing the naked to burying the dead, we see divine attributes, characteristics that represent what the Almighty believes are values, and that we therefore should call holy, and doing them represents holiness. What's the first thing? What's the very first thing that God did even before clothing the naked? Well, God created. God is a creator, and therefore, let's go a step deeper. The most powerful way in which we could be like God is to become creators ourselves. The first mitzvah in the Torah is to be fruitful and multiply. We have the ability, amazing, that's a miracle. We can have children. There are three partners to the creation of a human being, Mother, Father, and God. But we can play a role. That's incredible. We can create life, and we can further create in the course of our lives all the things that make life more meaningful, better for others, that make them good. Do you know that the word good has as its main feature the letters G-O-D? There's an extra O, but God is in good. Whatever is good has God in it. And we, if we imitate God and create that which is good, be it a good book, be it a good meal, be it a good building if we're an architect, whatever we do, if we do it faithfully, honestly, and it achieves a purpose that is divine. All of that is a first step. But I'd like to go beyond that. And many of the essays take off on this further concept. Very interesting that Jews have a special and unique understanding of the idea of holiness. As a matter of fact, I dare say it, and we say it in the book Sanctification, the Jewish idea of sanctity, of Kedushah, differs in one powerful way from the Christian explanation, and we should elaborate, we should make clear what we believe, and we should take pride in this distinction. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this, and then we'll identify it a bit more clearly. God gave us his divine wisdom and divine instruction in the Torah at Mount Sinai. We do not know the exact location of Mount Sinai. Isn't that amazing? The most exciting event in human history, and we can't place it geographically. Why is that? The rabbis of the Talmud answer that question. Because had we known the exact spot, the spot would become worshipped and the message would be lost. We don't want the location to become the focus of our devotion. We want the message to be the idea that we really treasure more than anything else. So we know where the range of mountains is, but not the exact location. However, Catholics believe they have found the spot. And they built a monastery on Sinai. This for them is a very holy spot. And there are priests who, more than anything else, have in the past wanted to spend their days on that spot. In order to do so, however, they must take a vow. Once they're there, once they're on that monastery location, they may never leave. And even when they die, their bones cannot be removed or buried elsewhere. They have to be buried in the room of the bones. Because reaching that height and that location means they have divorced themselves from this world and entered a new and more holy world. And so they are divorced from life here on earth. I wonder if you caught the point that I was trying to make. Let's say it in a different way. In the Middle Ages, there was a saint. Catholics worship him as a saint. Saint Simeon Stylites. And what he decided to do was to remove himself from the corruption and the baseness of this world. He built himself a treehouse, went up and lived the rest of his life removed from the world in that little treehouse. And he said, "This is holiness." And Judaism begs to differ. And Judaism says, you cannot divorce yourself from the world. When Moses went up Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, God gave him the gift, the 2 tablets, which is a summary of Jewish law. And then he said to him, now go down and bring this to the people on earth. The trip to Sinai is a round trip. You go up to God and then you bring the message down to earth. And holiness is when you take God's message and God's ideals and God's values and make them a part of life here. That is holiness. To cut yourself off from the world. To live in your own little world. That is to say, to live in a little treetop, in a tree house. That's not holiness, that is isolation. Fascinating. Jews have never had the concept of a monastery or nunnery, removing yourself from this world. Jews instead have a concept and a principle. Ein davar shebekedushah pachot Mesorah. There is nothing that is called holy that is less than 10. That is to say, when Jews pray, you can pray alone. Yes, God hears your prayer, but that's not the ideal. You know that famous Padashevsky play, The 10th Man. You know all the stories about Jews standing outside a house of prayer, and they are looking for a 10th person in order to complete a minyan, because there are parts of the service that cannot be read unless you have 10 people, because you cannot read the Torah nor say the Kaddish without 10 people. What is the meaning of this emphasis? We are seeking holiness, and holiness does not live in isolation. Holiness is when a group of people come together and together create a community. And then the community improves this world, Tikkun Olam, which is another one of our books. Then you are on the road to achieving the holy. Do you know that Kabbalists have a fascinating concept? I don't know if anyone else has this. Words may be associated by their mathematical unity. By that I mean, every Hebrew letter is also a number. And if the number of a word based on its letters corresponds to the number of a different word based on its letters, there is a message that combines them. The word Sinai in Gematria, in its letters, totals 130. There is another word that has that same Gematria, and it is powerful. Do you remember the story where Jacob, as he is fleeing from home because he's afraid of the wrath of his brother Esau, comes to a spot, unbeknownst to him at the time? It turns out to be the holiest spot on earth, the spot on which the temple would be built, the spot in Jerusalem, which is the focal point of so much controversy today. He lies down on the spot of the temple, and he has a dream. It is a vision of a ladder rooted on earth, and its top is in the heavens. And he sees angels going up and then going down. That was a vision that needed to be interpreted. Jacob understood it, and the commentators understand it. It is the definition of holiness based on the holiest spot on earth, and it tells us that holiness is to link earth and heaven, and then heaven and earth. The round trip. It means to understand that we are to go up, so to speak, to God and learn and understand from Him what is truth, what is valuable, and what is our potential. And then we are to bring it back down to earth and change the world so that the world, in the terms that David Birnbaum made famous via his philosophy of potentialism and philosophy of potentialism, that the world fulfills its potential already inserted into it by divine creation. We have a role in that. The word for ladder in Hebrew is sulam, and sulam equal Sinai. The ladder is Sinai. Sinai is the ladder. The link between earth and heaven, but a link that is meant to be mutual, going up and going down. There is a holiday and a specific mitzvah where this idea is beautifully expressed, both metaphorically and I dare say even physically. After the High Holy Days, we have a holiday known as Sukkot. And Jews leave their households and they build a little hut. That frail little hut is a symbol of life. Life is a temporary dwelling, just as is that sukkah. We sit in it. We're supposed to look up at the heavens and understand that God directs our lives as the source of all of our blessings. And so the sukkah does not have a roof. That's its purpose. All year long, we live in our homes. We build our homes bigger and better, and they become mansions, and we say, this is our security, and this is our blessing. But once a year, we move out of our homes into that little hut, and we don't see a ceiling, we see the sky. And we say, God is our protection, and God is over us, and God is the source of all of our blessings. But it's interesting. The sukkah does require something, sort of a roof. It's not a real roof. It's called schach, and it's anything that grew on the ground. And we put that over our heads. So we have something that grew on the ground and then the sky above us. And what was grown on the ground is not supposed to cover fully. You're supposed to be able to see the heavens. So what in the world is the message of that? The answer is, we're supposed to look up to the heavens, but we are supposed to see earth from a heavenly perspective. That's holiness. Holiness means for us, creations of God, to recognize our brotherhood and our common humanity, and to recognize our divine purpose, and to be God-like. We can't be God-like in the sense that we reach the level of God's power, but we can be God-like in that we reach the quality of his actions and the quality of his values. And that's how we become divine. So anytime someone acts in a way that we are taught is divine, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav, he made us holy with his mitzvahs because we become more like him. I look at you and you look at me. When we fulfill what we were created to be godlike, then each one of us looking into the eyes of the other sees a little bit of God, and that is divine.